Sorry about that. Hey, well, hello everyone, and welcome to the sixth episode of Dungeon Delvers. As always, he's Gene,
He's Rennie.
and together
Together.
we
We
are
are
unconventional
unconventional
heroes.
heroes. I got it right this
I,
time.
all
All
right,
right. We're not dungeon
we're
delvers
getting better.
always.
I feel like you wait for me, and then
Yeah, no, it's 100%. I'm like, oh, is he going to trick me this time? Not that you've ever tricked me before, but I'm just
oh well,
like,
now I'm going to, but I can't. I gotta wait.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, guys. This is always a hoot. And as always, if you're tuning in for the sixth time, you're awesome. But as always, this show is just full of opinions. It is just two nerds with nerdy opinions talking about how nerdy those opinions are generally. So, thanks for joining us. We are going to do our best to answer audience questions as they come. Uh, Dean, you have added a interesting new feature to our chat. Would you
I
like to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, I would. I've added 2 new features. So, honestly, going through all our streams over the next about 30 days, we have a community challenge, which is the Dungeon Delvers will delve into the dungeon of the Warlock, which Rennie literally refused to do. So I need your
Out
help
of out of
to
spite.
get 20,000 potions so I can hire this hireling to join me in the delve of a Warlock. Also, Rennie will
What's our
also
percentage at?
we're at
34.
34. Rennie will
Nice.
also build a warlock on D&D Beyond that we will put in the overlay so that you can see it, and I will force him to play it in probably a game I run online at some point.
Yeah.
It might be a
Yep. That checks out.
flashback. It might be a flashback for some other character, but Rennie will definitely play a warlock whether he likes it or not. Next, we have a fun little feature that I added for one of our friends, Mark, or DJ Poser, who loves the show so much, clearly, which is anyone could do it. But there is, I believe, 1,000 potion point buy where you can pay it, and Rennie and I will do our best to talk about some sort of esoteric topic of D&D 2nd edition or Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, and if we are able to, we'll try to even link it to the episode. So, like, if you were to do it now and we did Paladin, we could, do it for you to talk about some weird shit about the Paladin back in old D&D. But yeah. So, that's our special features. And thank you, Miss Hades Game, for boosting with also other help. 35% to our challenge. So we're doing good, guys. Just keep spending those channel points to really make Rennie.
To make me sad. I mean, not like existentially sad, just a little sad. um well, yeah. So uh before we get into this, I just want to say happy Pride Month. We are so happy to be able to broadcast during this time. And I don't know, Gene. I think without further ado, it's time to roll initiative.
Okay. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to do it?
I'll go first.
Okay. Yeah.
What is happening?
Tell me.
It's exclamation point R
R.
1d20.
Yeah.
I don't think it's working, buddy.
I don't know. It worked for me. You're not in the chat, maybe.
How? How am I not in the chat?
I
I'm
didn't see.
here.
I haven't seen anything you've posted in the chat.
I don't know how to get more in the chat. I have it on. You know what? Don't even sweat it. Don't even sweat it. Gene, would you roll?
I rolled a 14.
All right, I'm gonna roll physical dice.
How dare you
Give me
analog
the
this
internet.
very internet-based show?
Gene, I rolled a 2. It's all you.
Perfect. Well, if we're rolling real dice, I'm definitely gonna beat you. All
Yeah, no,
right.
see, that's the thing. It's real dice are my enemy. Then I'll definitely lose every time.
Yeah. Also, don't forget that you can ask us questions throughout this show, and at the end we'll answer them, or we'll just answer them whenever we feel like it during the show. So, our first room is might be a paladin. First off, amazing. Second off, there's some great inspiration. It's just amazing. There's some great inspirations from movie, television, books, comics. If you read the Dresden Files, Michael Carpenter, any of the Holy Knights are great examples. King Arthur from Legend and many of the Round Table. Galahad, Gawain, a
Oh
large
yeah,
amount of them. Heck, even Lancelot for his pride and like justice and like sense, or not justice, but like his showmanship. As there's this new special paladin based on that. I argued with Rennie about the Sith/Jedi because you can kind of look at the Jedi as like a held order, and then the Sith maybe being the fallen version of that or a different. The Green Knight again from these ancient legends. I went a little biblical and went with like Joan of Arc, as she definitely had this cause and became this great warrior of light in quotes. Solomon Kane from some of that pulp that I like. More modern would be Captain America. Great, ideals stands for truth, justice. Then Judge Dredd as someone who follows and is obedient to a code and laws, whether they are right or wrong. It doesn't matter, how
he
big,
follows them.
how big or small the crime is. Um, he will, enforce it. Wonder Woman with a little bit of like her divine origin, kind of mixed with these like group of people who are in this order of ancient and powerful warriors. Roland Deschain from the Gunslinger series of Stephen King. He follows his code involving like how you shoot from the heart, and like it's kind of like this whole order and way he like uses it to kind of guide him on his mission. And like to Ned Stark, falling, he was this man of honor who tried to pass down these traditions and believed so much in it, walked openly into a trap. And then Rennie kind of picked the idea of Sauron as like your quintessential look for like a dark paladin or an oath of, or like an oath what is it for say
Oathbreaker.
Oathbreaker.
Gene.
There we go.
Yeah, Sauron to me is like perfect Oathbreaker aesthetic. Yeah, and paladins. I feel like a lot of time they are kind of attached to religion, and while that is sort of like sometimes true, what I really like about paladins is they're more an oath based role play, an oath, a promise, you know, something that a code that your character follows. And again, there is nothing in the rules or the cosmology or the story of the game that says you need a god attached to your paladin. Do certain orders and codes of good or evil or whatever align up with godly aspects? Sure, absolutely. But you know, playing a paladin doesn't require that kind of stuff. Um, and to that end, if you are someone who really likes to explore that kind of role play, they can be really rewarding. There is this whole argument about lawful good and lawful stupid and how paladins can derail. And you know what, Gene? We didn't talk about this beforehand, but we're going to talk about it like towards the end of the episode because I think there's an important discussion to have where a lot of people shy away from paladins because you're like, well, I don't want to be the party, like the buzzkill, and you don't have to be. Is the point? Um, so yeah, there's a lot of RP built in paladin, which again, if you've been paying attention on the show, I love sort of story baked into character. Not that that's the reason I don't like warlock. Maybe I just don't like that story. I don't
I
know.
mean, warlocks literally have a story baked into their character.
Yeah, maybe it's lame. I don't know what to tell you.
Ow.
Now I'm just throwing heat at warlocks.
How dare you?
But no, I really dig paladins, and not just because they're the goddamn best.
They are the best.
It's because listen, playing a paladin and making that RP enjoyable is kind of a fun challenge. Um, and you get kind of access to the world in a way like when you walk around town or when you do stuff in game, you're a paladin, and not like everyone knows it, but they're like that guy, he's about something. He stands for something. She embodies something. Like you are a fixture, a figure in the world, kind of carving your path, which is cool.
I mean, Rennie mentioned this already. They're literally one of the best goddamn classes in the game. They're amazing. And let's talk about how amazing they are. You got healing, check. You got fighting, kablam, smite the shit out of people.
Oh,
You
blam.
you got spell casting, because you know what you need to besides hitting people with swords and holy energy? Magic. Also, yeah, you do it all. Plus, you want a pet? Great, you got one too. Nailed it. You just kind of have a lot going on, and there's not really much cost besides a little bit of heavy RP, and that also kind of depends on the game you're playing and GM who's running it.
Very true. Very true. Um, yeah, and one of the things I love about paladins, and again, I mentioned this in other episodes, is like I'm a big fan of support classes. I'm a big fan of abilities and spells and just stuff that kind of makes your team better around you. Paladins, being just full of insanity, they get like team helping abilities without even trying. Like, are they awake? Are they near you? Life is better. It's just a little better, you know. Their auras bananas, just goddamn bananas. Um, and a lot of their channel divinities, and again, it's not true for every single oath, but many of their channel divinities are: how do I help people around me? How do I heal you? How do I give you a bonus? And yes, some are more personal or you know just mean, but like doing nothing as a paladin, like picking your nose in a fight, you're still doing pretty good. You're still doing a good job. Um, yeah, that's one of the great reasons.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but Rennie and I really enjoy paladins. So moving on, I said this a little earlier, but man, smite those heathens. And by heathens, we generally mean like fiends, undead, and supernatural foes, or even natural foes that need to be hit a little extra hard. They kind of do insane spike damage because with the option of choosing that you can smite after a hit, most of the time you can drop that smite on a crit if you have them left, or you can make sure if you're fighting undead or fiends that take a little extra damage from your smite, you'll drop your low levels and they'll still really get a nice bang for your buck.
Yeah, yeah, buddy. um, yeah, and I kind of mentioned this earlier about them being kind of a figure or a fixture in any kind of story they're a part of, but they're a very classic D&D archetype. D&D, while D&D pulls from a lot of mythology, mythos, pantheons, monsters, creatures, crypto creatures, like there are, D&D kind of has its own culture, cosmology, and archetypes of its own. And Paladin, like that gleaming knight, like, smashing through undead with holy power, that is a very paladin centric kind of sort of motif. Ooh, another good paladin gene, Saint George, who slayed the dragon. Like that's a good paladin, I think too.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
but yeah, no, I mean, paladins are going to be here from first edition to 15th edition. Like they're not going anywhere. Uh, Also, finally, and lastly, of YB Paladin, who made this class and how did it get past editors and playtesters to be like, you know what? a paladin and a fighter, yeah, they're pretty much the same. They're pretty much the same.
But it's cool.
And
Fighters get 3 attacks at 11th. You just do an extra D8 damage. It's fine.
yeah,
Nothing's bad.
and like, listen. D&D has never been about let's balance everything across the board, except in 4th edition. 4th edition was the only time they tried to balance everything. But other than that specific example, D&D's never been like, and this class is better than the class. Why? And they just go, because it is. I don't know what to tell you. It just is. And maybe that's the idea of like playing a paladin, and right and wrong are maybe the wrong words to use when talking about it. But if you're playing a paladin right, maybe some of the reason you're a little more powerful is because your worldview and your role play is a little more kind of tight, a little more constructed for you. And that's not to say that a paladin can't vary wildly from another paladin, but many times there's a very kind of iconic lawful good, do what's right, don't steal, don't lie to the guard. Like, you're very much the like, and again, that's an iconic way of looking at it, but still, who the fuck made this and said it was fine?
It's fine. How are you? Everything is fine.
Who the fuck did this? I feel like it's the same person who wrote Druids, Gene. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. I mean, they wrote Druid and they were like, "This is fine. Let's make Paladin."
Yeah, what came first, the Druid or the Paladin? Is that like the chicken and egg joke?
The eternal 5th edition question.
I mean,
if you're playing a Druid, you could be like, "Which came first, the chicken and the egg?" And you just fucking.
You just hatch. You immediately set an action to hatch.
You hatch out of yourself. That's a Druid ability, right?
Yeah, no, definitely.
All right, let's move out of this room, out of the level of the dungeon.
All right. I'm going to roll initiative, because apparently you can't. Oh, boy. I think you're going
to... You look like you rolled good. What'd you roll?
No,
you rolled bad. I saw 1 and I thought it had a number after. I'm going to try this again. I don't know why it was giving me shit before. Okay. Oh, I think I know why, but let's see if it works.
Hey!
Oh, I beat you because you rolled like poop.
How dare you? It was a good one. It was a strong one. A confident one.
A confident one. Proceed with confidence. Nothing bad can ever happen. All right, so we're going to move into what does it mean to be a paladin? Sort of the meat and potatoes, the bones of the paladin. And, we sort of touched on this a little more, but I kind of want to dig a little deeper of choosing your oath is very important. So you kind of want to think about it when you're making your character, right? And, reading the oaths and kind of looking ahead for your character, always a good idea, no matter what class you're playing, but especially for paladins. And each oath kind of gives you an example of the tenets they follow and the sort of the ideology behind how this paladin order was created, and sort of a general, this is the rules they follow. Now, what I like to say is it's a suggestion. It's all about your flavor. You should try to stay kind of in line with that ideology, but you don't need to follow each tenet exactly as that's laid out for you.
All right, you all right, buddy?
Yeah. Sorry, I had a moment there. But this is a very roleplay heavy class. You're going to make an oath, and it's something you should talk to your GM about. Of like, listen, you don't need to go through. Hey, my oath ceremony was like this, and I had a vigil for 2 days, and I couldn't eat anything but the root of a ginger. And like, you don't need to go like that, but you should talk to your GM about like, hey, this is the oath that I sort of put forth to, whether it was a deity, whether it was yourself, whether it was at the site of some great event, battle, shrine, whatever the case may be. The oath, the promise that you made is very important to that character. And you should be conscious of it when you are role playing, when you are making choices for your character. Like an Oath of Glory paladin might not have as many like help your friends stuff, or because they're like, hey, look at me and how great I am. But then again, they might have a lot of like reactionary sort of get in the way of a foe, because they're like, "Oh, don't worry, I'm here. I'll save you." So it's really kind of down to interpretation, but that oath is important. So, I will say kind of think about that when you're creating your character, and it's not something you need to do in game. If you do, awesome. But it's definitely something to consider in the process.
Rennie, are we technically paladins because we had to take an ancient oath in the Order of the Arrow, where we had to camp out a vigil at night
Here's the deal.
and
Gene.
we couldn't
If you
eat?
could name if you could name even a single tenet of that oath,
Oh
maybe.
Jesus! Oh fuck!
I'll say this because I remember a white sash with a red
Yeah,
arrow, and that's about it.
I remember that we had to sleep under the stars, and we
Oh yeah.
were
Oh
we
yep.
we had to fast for the first whole day. Um,
Oh, I remember the process very well because I was hungry the whole time. And they and again, part of
oh, you
the
had to be
oath for
silent. You had to be silent the whole
you had to
time.
be quiet, right? You couldn't speak. And they're like, we know you're hungry, and the only thing you've eaten today is an apple and a boiled egg. But you know what we're gonna do? Hard labor. Right, kids? That sounds fun. Now, granted, we volunteered. No one forced us to do this. This was completely voluntary. But yeah,
So we don't know the
I'll
oaths.
say
We're not
this.
paladins. Got it.
Yeah, we're not paladins because clearly the oath didn't mean a whole lot.
I
Because
mean, when we were Boy Scouts, we did say our sweet like sacred vow every time you
yeah,
went to the meetings. They
it's true.
tried, but you don't get holy powers from being Boy Scout. Sorry, guys. Anyway, magic. Damn it, merit badge magic. All right,
Wouldn't that be great?
that would have been cool. All right. Honestly, so another part about being a paladin is they are kind of amazing healers. With like a built-in healing feature. Yes, it takes a little bit of their action economy, which is terrible to begin with, but they can kind of heal. They have a pool every day they can do, and that can be used to heal themselves, heal others, remove poisons and diseases, and then eventually just break spell effects on people for its own sake, which is insane in its own right. So it's like, not only are you this fighting tank with heavy armor, shield, and sword, or whatever you choose, you can also just heal people. You're like, oh man, you went to 0? Great, heal 30 points if I'm a 6th level
Yep.
paladin, and you've just brought someone up, you can instantly, do it as your action. And that's not including any healing spells you may have taken to support yourself and others. So, they're
Right.
it's just bro. It's just bro.
Yeah, without taking a single healing spell, you're still a pretty competent healer, which is just like, what? I mean, access to healing spells, make them make the choice of taking a healing spell. Cool, takes a spell slot, which are precious. Nah, no, stop. Lay on hands. No, but and along that same line, divine sense is a really powerful supernatural sense that kind of isn't replicated by many other classes or spells. There are spells that come close, but divine sense, a you just get to use it a number of times a day. You just turn on your Palavision, and you look for ghosts and demons. And it's funny. I'm gonna go quick anecdote, and it's actually your anecdote, Gene. When we've played Adventures League for a number of years, and Gene played a paladin from 1 to 20 the whole way.
Good times, good times.
And besides, all the nonsense that we got into, there was a moment where like we were talking to someone, and Gene went divine sense. I think that dude's up to bullshit, and literally the GM had to stop the session to be like, hey, could you not? Because if you reveal that he's this thing now, the adventure's over. And she was like, Yeah, all right, I guess.
Or that time where like we were rescuing people and the person ran up to us and I was like, divine sense, and it was like, that's a succubus, and I was like,
Oh, that was the
we
succubus who I was like, "Oh, hey, lady, how you doing?"
yeah, but I also established, as Rennie stated, like whenever we met anyone in a room beginning of the adventure, like we're about to hire you, I'm like, divine sense, this guy smell weird,
Yeah,
and
you were definitely paranoid with it.
yeah, or I used it
But
and
again,
yeah, it's amazing.
it's I mean, not only is it incredible, but you know, I'll say for my own personal use, there was a room we went in. We were kind of low level, and I was like a low level paladin. That's when I played a Gunadin, which was bananas.
Berserk.
We're not even gonna touch it because it was too
It
stupid.
was too stupid.
Um, but we were in a room and we started getting attacked, and we couldn't see the thing that was attacking us, and it turned out to be a ghost. And the only person who could get a bead on where it was me with divine sense. So while I had to spend my action, not every round, because you know whatever, but like I had to spend my action to kind of activate it and look around. I essentially was the only way the party could spotlight where the enemy was. So divine sense is just great.
I think I have
Um,
a similar story involving an imp because they can be invisible at low level,
yeah,
and you're
yeah.
like, it's right there and it's running. Let's get it, guys.
Get it. Yeah. You want to talk about more reasons they're broken?
Yeah, sure, they're amazing. So honestly, they are the perfect gish. Like half caster, heavy weapons, heavy armor. They get a multitude of fighting styles, which are some are selfish, some are just awesome, like violently extra more strong. And a lot of their spells only have verbal components because it's kind of built in to make the class work, so you don't have to take a feat to get support so you can cast spells while holding your weapon and shield, because they kind of expect you to be fully armed and armored while fighting and also casting. So a lot of their extra smites, a lot of their extra abilities are just verbal. Rarely do you see like components, and then occasionally you see semantic, but it's those are only
Yeah.
for like high end spells.
Yeah.
So
A lot of paladin specific spells are verbal only, which again, when you think of some of the better paladin spells, you're like,
oh, and not
that's
to mention,
unnecessary.
if we were to compare other half caster spell lists, paladins, sync rangers, 11 out of like 10 times. Just,
Right. Right. Yeah, and artificers only come close because of versatility.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah, but artificers are meant to be kind of foolish half casters, so I don't even know if I count that.
I mean, they're half casters.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
live in that same
yeah,
place.
but they're not paladins,
Um,
so
yeah, and in case we haven't mentioned it yet, smiting, smitey smite, holy smite, goddamn smite. Um, it's kind of the bread and butter of paladin, and you know, while you get a lot of resources to pull from, lay on hands, divine senses, um, spell slots, divine smite is the only thing where you kind of have to do a little mental math occasionally to say, oh, do I have enough spell slots to pull off this smite? Ooh, do I just give him a little baby smite at first level? Doesn't matter what level you smite at, it's usually the right choice. You've never made a poor choice when you've chosen to smite your enemies. And then, like, not only the fact that smite is incredible, just 2d8 starting out, but because they thought paladins didn't have enough going for them, you get just a free die, a d8 of damage at 11th level. Again, you know, you're gonna see a lot of times me and Gene going, "What the fuck?"
I mean,
Because they needed more
and
abilities.
it's crazy because like other classes that get extra attack don't even get an additional bullshit on 11th. Like
Yeah,
fighters get their third attack, it makes sense. They even get their fourth. Monks get their two attacks, but they already built in previously had their extra attacks from their bonus. But like barbarians don't get anything once they hit 11th for being able to hit people more. Like any of those main classes that get even those little like proc abilities in some of those fighter oriented magic classes with their subclass, they don't get another ability at 11th for fighting good, and it's just insane.
it's
Insane.
bananas. Yeah. Um, yeah, yeah, and I mean, again, I feel like again, all these abilities, when you start looking at all these abilities and all these things you can do, you know, it really is made for a bold character. And again, whether you are boldly peaceful or boldly courageous or, boldly protective of your certain thing, you have all these abilities of heal, fight, uh stop magical problems, get rid of negative effects. You just like nothing will you become this sort of paladin juggernaut of this is my will, this it will be done. And again, if you let a paladin kind of roll, they can get bananas. Like, we had a paladin in one of Gene's games years and years ago where Gene, what CR was that black dragon
I,
that
I
that
think it
killed me?
was like 18. It
It
might
was
have.
like CR 18, and we were a party of fifth level characters, I want to say. Fifth level characters. And I got killed like immediately. The fight started, I hit the dragon one time, and the dragon went, breath weapon, you're dead. And I went, yep, that checks out. And because one of the other characters in the party was a paladin, we were buddies, he was like, nope, I'm fighting this thing to the death. And he won,
Yeah, the rest of
and
the
it was
party
just
ran.
and this was early in our kind of our
Yeah.
experience of fifth edition. So like we knew it, but we didn't know kind of it in its broad sense. And to watch this fifth level paladin go toe to toe with the black dragon and
Yeah.
like win,
Yeah. He
it
got
just didn't make
he
any
got he
sense.
got a little lucky, but yeah, more or
Oh yeah,
less.
there was a lot of factors, but
Madron
still,
Jesus showed up. It was great. uh,
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, besides that, I mean, they're like the next like besides like Rennie was talking about like them being team players, their auras are just amazing, and not only do their auras affect others, they generally affect them too. So it's not like, oh man,
yeah.
this ability's only good when I'm around people. No, it's just good. It's great when it's around people,
It's not
but
like bardic inspiration where you can't inspire yourself.
yeah, unless you're a sword bard and then you realize how great you are at fighting.
But then you're just inspiring your sword.
It's true. It's not you. It's all about the sword. But I mean, their auras are just amazing because even if you take away oaths and you take away their special subclasses, their base auras are saving throw bonuses, which is amazing because it's based off one of their main features, which is charisma. Then you have immunity to fear at higher levels, which is amazing. And really, it's like the paladin is like, while we talk a lot about other classes being front loaded, the paladin actually is mid loaded because level 6 through like 9, you get some just insane improvements.
Yeah.
You get like 2 auras from like Rennie and I played in a D&D fighting tournament
Oh my
where
god.
we won. Don't worry, if in case you worried. Uh where I played the
Nobody
paladin.
cares, Sheen. Nobody
But the
cares.
point is, like, we started at 5th, and every time we won, I got an aura. And as soon as I became more than a 5th level character, you just watch the paladin explode into this like aura, and it's amazing. And so it's like really that mid tier boost that a lot of classes don't get. They just kind of keep going, or they get more spells. They get a lot. And also eventually when they get super high level, those auras go from 10 feet to 30 feet, which generally covers most battlefields with your allies.
Right, as if they needed to get better.
Too, apparently.
Apparently. Yeah, and one of the other things that makes paladins just amazing, you get access to unique and in some cases very powerful spells. Things like Crusader's Mantle, Divine Favor, all the smites. And don't get me wrong, some classes get to dip into a few of those smites that you get, but you can cast a smite spell, hit someone with it, the smite spell goes off, and you can divine smite on top of it. And yes, it is massively resource draining, but you can you can ruin someone or something. You
And
just
also,
ruin it.
some of those smite spells, while they don't do a ton of damage, have great effects. Like, the one that makes it so invisible things can't turn, banish people with them.
Brandishing,
Yeah,
brandishing
branding smite.
branding smite, yeah,
Like,
yeah, banishing smite's pretty dope.
they have a lot of utility smites. Like, you do extra damage and you fuck them up in
Right.
this way.
Yeah. And like don't sleep on that like, well, I could do 2d8 as opposed to just 2d6. Like don't sweat it. You are getting extra damage plus,
Plus, yeah, like some sort of control effect.
Right. And that can't be understated. Um and like god, what's the destructive wave? It's one of the craziest spells in the world. It's
Ah,
one of the craziest spells in the
so
goddamn world.
good.
It's just everyone around me that I hate, friends excluded, take 10d6 damage, save versus prone, and half. Like, I'm sorry, what? um,
Good
yeah,
stuff.
and I mean, again, there's more paladin spells. The find steed, find greater steed. Again, for 10 minutes of your time, you get a free sidekick and increased mobility, which you need as a paladin. So you get a lot. Like you just get a lot, and you get very paladin centric because they want you to kind of cut that striking figure, whatever that means for your guy or gal.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and their combat role, as we've gone to, is both tank and just melee murderer. But unlike rogues, who can consistently do their extra damage with certain conditions, paladins can do those spikes at the cost of resources on hits. So they don't need
Yeah.
to angle up; they just need to hit, and then they can unleash. I mean, they're emergency healers, they're backup buffers, but also some are primary buffers depending on what oath you go. Having
Very
a
true.
heroism going every round at low levels is amazing. If you get that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Um, and for out of combat, again, you get healing. So out of combat, if you don't need to heal in combat, cool. Well, I have 50 points to lay on hands, guys. What do you need? 10, 15 over here? Cool. You know? Um, they have some decent buffs, again, depending on your oath a little bit, but even not, like, they have a few aura spells and there's more aura spells for other classes these days as well, but they have a few aura spells that are tremendously good. Um, and they're great at removing status effects. Again, lay on hands just does it. You're just like, oh, are you poisoned? You're better. Oh, are you sick? You're better. You just have built-in ways to get rid of statuses and problems. So, out of combat, they're probably not going to do a lot of skill work, but they still have so many useful options. It's hard to,
I mean, you did mention something that actually we didn't mention that rarely comes up. Paladins are just immune to diseases.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Not a
Yeah, yeah.
huge thing in D&D because not a lot of things do just diseases, but that's great for like environments. Like, oh, you go to a jungle and there's a chance you can catch this. Nah, I'm a paladin. It's fine.
I mean, it does save you from certain spells too. Contagion,
Yep.
you're immune.
Yep.
Uh harm. Harm is a virulent disease that you give to someone.
Really?
Read it, dude. I read it recently, and it
Huh.
was like, how does this 6th level spell not affect paladins?
That's
Anyway,
interesting.
yeah, literally the first line of it is you unleash a virulent disease on your enemy,
Huh.
and it's like, well, that's stupid.
That's cool. Did not know that. That means also certain druids don't give a fuck about it either, and
Yeah,
monks.
true. Same with monks. Yeah, but along with their out of combat role, being very kind of heal heavy and status effect heavy, um, you know, they have mounts. They can help pull your wagon and and kind of get places, but that's a case to case basis. You want to talk about some of the Tasha's choices, Dean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, some of the neat Tasha stuff, which I thought was cool, because I find that a lot of the extras they have given have been really nice boosts to classes, whether they need them or not. So you got some new spells, Prayer of Healing, which is great, another out of combat heal. Warding Bond, I think, is an excellent spell that most paladins should have had on their list. Only some got them through their auras, but it makes sense. Summon Celestial is pretty cool because it's the new summons that come along with Tasha's that they kind of scale up with whatever spell slot you use. And having another summon as a paladin, unnecessary, but awesome, because you don't really have you can't like summon wolves, you can only really have your steed, so having some extra stuff could be a headache for the GM, but also could be fun if you need some help. The new fighting styles are great. Blind fighting. I really enjoy the interceptor fighting style where you reduce damage as a reaction. I think it's because they're at certain levels. I think the shield interposer one from most, which is like you give disadvantage to one attack, I think can really be outshined by this intercession, because things are going to hit you even with disadvantage sometimes. Yeah. So being able to just reduce that damage is really neat. And also, honestly, there are some paladin builds, like, you don't need to focus on just your weapon or your fighting style. Just get cantrips, because you don't have them. So you don't want to shore up some of that ranged stuff, get some cantrips. And also, I mean, the regaining spell slots through channel divinities is just amazing, and everyone who can do it should do it, and if you can't do it, you should feel bad about not being a class that can. And then I think martial versatility and cantrip versatility kind of go hand in hand, where they're neat, and I think they kind of help tell a story. If you're like, I've fought with a blade for many a months, and aka I hit 4th level and I'm changing my shit out, and now I'm focused. I tied a bandana around my eyes, and for the next month, I trained to hone my senses. Like, I know I used martial versatility recently in another game that I play on Wednesdays, where I shed my skin so that I can now feel and breathe through my skin for blind sight, because I'm a frog person. And I thought it was neat, and I was like, that's a cool fighting style, because I don't need to focus on one type of fighting. So I think as long as you have a cool, I try to do things as gross as possible when I play.
That sounds like you.
But yeah, I mean, I just think it's cool. I think honestly, these new things are just little extra. Like, anyone can be a paladin, anyone can be this type of oath paladin. But as you kind of take those little special tweaks of like my specific fighting style, my specific spells that I take, I think they kind of really help define your story and your version of what the character is that will be unique to, every other paladin.
Definitely. All right, I think it's time to delve a little deeper, Gene, and start talking about sacred oaths. Are you ready? Are you ready?
Yeah, and I want to preface everyone that I wrote silly names for these types of paladins that we will read and choose how bad they are.
You get to be the judge.
Oh,
what's up? What's up, homie?
Oh, maybe I should roll the real die this time. All right,
you know what, Gene? I think it's because I'm playing a paladin in your game. Yeah, roll for real. See if you can beat me.
Got 12.
Nah.
Nice. Let's also see just in case. See? Doesn't fucking matter.
I was dirty as hell.
Doesn't matter. So,
all right,
you go first, buddy.
I'll start it off. I mean, of course I will. So, the first thing, as always, with any of the subclasses in all of D&D, and you guys are going to hear us talk about this every single time, is it's all about telling a story through your character choices. There's lots of ways to tell your character story: exposition, actions, things said, things not said, etc. But when you're building D&D, when you're building your D&D character, every choice you make should come from a motivation from your character, a choice that your character made down their line during their life for reasons. And like, even if it's like, hey, remember 2 games ago when this thing happened? Well, that has made me go in this direction where I might have gone another direction in other cases. And I'll be honest, I love those kind of choices. Those kind of choices always feel great to me. So, you know, definitely with the Paladin, and customizing your flavor is really about kind of making your oath work for you. Beyond the person that you are, because you're more than just your oath. Um, but customizing the flavor of your abilities, of how they come through. If you're not a really religious paladin, maybe your abilities are kind of subtle. There's not this blinding flash of light and heat. There's maybe it's very kind of low key, a murmur in the earth, a wind rustling by. So it's things to think about when you kind of think about how each choice that you make through character building kind of comes through. And do you want to start with the first one, Gene, or do you want to pick that up?
No, why don't you start with
All
first?
right. So, and the first paladin we're going to talk about, we talk about them very much in order. So, no surprises here, guys. Is the Oath of Conquest, aka Fearadin. Um, so the Oath of Conquest paladin is pretty much kind of a tyrannical paladin, and I'll be honest, this is a paladin I would very much check with your GM before you make this choice. Um, Listen, if you start spreading fear and terror around people, your party might not be down with your with being a literal terrorist with wherever you go. So check in with your GM, check in with your party as well. As it's always important to have that kind of on table, in table sort of symmetry. So to start it out, you get your conquering presence. Great. Everyone who fails their save, they are now afraid of you. And fear is very centralized to this class. You very much want your enemies to be under a fear effect, and then other bad things happen to them once they're already afraid of you. Guided strike. If you think you're gonna miss, you definitely won't after guided strike. Um, Aura of Conquest. I'll be honest. I don't think this aura is terribly great because it has a condition that you need enemies to be afraid of you. And again, you have plenty of ways. Literally, you get a spell called Cause Fear, and you have your you have your Channel Divinity that does it. But when it's feared, it's then speed drops and takes damage, which is nice. But there's a big condition on the other side of it, and a lot of creatures, especially at higher level, they don't give a crap about fear. Scornful Rebuke is is nice. It's just nice if they're like, "Oh, you dare touch me? That was a mistake," and you get to just repel them for damage. It's nice. Um, and the nice thing is that it's like always on. So like that's like, oh, I stabbed him in his sleep when he wasn't looking. That still hurts. Ow, that fucking hurts. Like doesn't matter as long as they're not incapacitated. So I guess not when they're sleeping, but you know what I mean.
Gotta watch out for those warforged tyrannical people who don't sleep.
That's true. Warforged Conquest Paladins. That's a force to be reckoned with. Invincible Conquer. Again, I think pretty much all level 20 Paladin abilities, and I will say I do like that their capstones aren't at 18 or like they are at 20th level because when you get to this level of Paladin, you're no longer just like a person who believes in stuff. Your will and power manifests so much that it like changes you physiologically. Um, and Invincible Conquer is no different. You get resistance to all damage, because at 20th level, you definitely need to take half damage from everything. Getting an extra attack again at 20th level. Like you didn't get to 20th level with 2 attacks, so they better give you 3 for making the trip, I guess. And you get an increased crit range, which is nice. Um, but I mean, I'll be honest, this very much feels like if you're a GM and you want to make a bad guy paladin, there's a few bad guy paladin choices on the paladin list, and this is one of them, in my opinion. We currently are playing with a character in the game who started out as a conquest paladin, who then, through therapy and some butting of heads and realizing there's a better way, is now kind of on a new path. But we that was discussed beforehand that he was going to kind of start as one thing and then he was going to go through a journey. But if you like making people afraid of you, if you like making people afraid of you, maybe stay away from people. That's what, end of sentence. Nothing to do with D&D. If you like making people afraid of you, go away.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like a Bane paladin, you could be part of a good guy party as long as you were, doing things against enemies. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard, but I can see it. I can see it working as a good.
When I don't know, man. And again, it's just hard to reconcile. Yes, you're playing a fantasy game, but you're playing a fantasy game where you're trying to rule people's actions and will through fear. And it's like, man, that's not great.
That's true. I mean, but that could also be your group. Your group could be we're not good guys. You got what happens if you're like a
Oh, totally.
You could be like, oh, like a mercenary band, like the Black Company, like from the books, where like, no, we're the best at what we do, and people fear us because they know how good we are. That could be just a thought.
Oh yeah, no, I think they have a place. I just, again, be careful.
All right. So, with that, did you talk about cool spells for them?
Oh, you know what? Thank you, Gene. I'm sorry. I skipped over their spells. So some of their spells that are really nice. You get Armor of Agathis, which is awesome. It's Warlock spells are very hard to kind of get at from other classes. So getting Armor of Agathis is awesome. Bestow Curse, again, it's just mean. It's just a mean thing to do to people, and it's
so
really
good.
good.
Okay.
Fear, again, it's so inherent to your class that you need people to be
And
feared.
it's a 60-foot cone. That's incredible for you.
It's huge. It's huge. Dominate Beast and Dominate Person. And while Dominate Beast may not come up all the time, Dominate Person, again, it kind of just fits in with their motif of like, and you do what I say, because I said that you should do it. And,
you work for me now.
Exactly. So yeah, they're pretty terrifying. Rightfully so.
Yeah. All right. And I get to speak about the Oath of Devotion, or as I like to call them, Vanilladin, because they are your very traditional paladin, no lying. You're stick in the mud, like turn the other way while we murder this person. But I didn't say that because then you'd stop me. They're very much, your encapsulation of lawful good. Very much what you would expect. Honor, compassion, all of those things. Their channel divinities are pretty what you would consider standard. They get to kind of be like, they get to say that prayer into their weapon and then it glows in holy light, and it's much easier at beating bad people up. And then they also get Turn the Unholy, which is just like a Turn Undead, except it also affects fiends, which is pretty nice. Their Aura of Devotion is awesome. I labeled it as Fuck Charm because Charm is a little hard to get immune to or resistant to in D&D, except if you're like an elf. But you're just like, nah, people can't get charmed, and that really cuts out a lot of entrancing abilities, dominates, just a lot of abilities that certain monsters really rely on.
You just shut down certain creatures.
You just shut them down. Purity of Spirit, it gives you protection from evil just always on, which is awesome, because that means that creatures that are like fiends, fae, aberrations, they just can't target you unless they make a saving throw. And also, I believe, and it also gives you immunities to a whole bunch of their effects and advantage on saving throws. So you're just like, you know what? It's cool. I'm always protected from evil. I'll never be corrupted. Fuck everything around that. Then their transformation is the Holy Nimbus, which is they essentially explode into sun. They just create just a huge amount of sun around them, which is specifically sunlight. Important. And it gives bad guys really bad. It gives your friends really good tans and bad guys really bad burns, as you just hurt bad guys in that radius, and also you also gain advantage on saving throws against fiends or undead because you need that. Because you definitely need that with your aura that already gives you huge bonuses to those saves via your charisma. You know what you need to do? Get better saves.
Yep.
So
That's what you were missing this whole time.
So I don't know if this is the one of the better transformations, but it's still awesome. Free damage, you get advantage, and also sunlight. Some of their spells, which I kind of highlight, they have a lot of your very traditional paladin spells, but I think Sanctuary is honestly one of the most amazing spells in D&D. The bonus action, and it doesn't take concentration, so you can help protect yourself and others because you can hit someone really hard and then cast Sanctuary on yourself. I think Zone of Truth is a neat spell because it lets you kind of solve some weird investigation and like social things to get information, which all paladins can get Zone of Truth, but having it just always at your disposal is really nice. Same thing with Dispel Magic. While you might want to be using your higher end slots for smiting, there's going to be a time and a place where a well placed Dispel Magic is going to really help out. Guardian of Faith, higher level spell. I'm using it a lot as my current cleric, but just having something that shows up and for 8 hours does damage until it's gone, never gonna be mad at it, especially if you are like holding a point as a paladin and you're like, cool, when they enter this point, they live in this damage. And then lastly, Flame Strike, because Flame Strike is hella dope, and if you're not casting Destructive Wave, you might as well be casting Flame.
Yeah, no, good call. Something I want to kind of quick mention before we move forward. We didn't talk about the kind of spellcasters that paladins are. I'm gonna quick review it just in the kind of what are paladins or what does it mean to be a paladin. And they are prepared casters, so each day they can change their spell list, which is just great. Um, and they have a number of known spells, and again, I think the formula is like paladin level plus charisma modifier, and maybe there's a half level or
half paladin level.
Half paladin level plus charisma modifier. And I'll say this: if you have a good charisma modifier, you will probably find yourself with a massive list of paladin spells with not a lot of spell slots to use them with because that's your life. But just to kind of make sure that everyone's on the same page with that.
Another reason they're just better than Rangers. Carry on.
Hard facts. Hard facts. All right. So to get back into their sacred oaths, the next we have Oath of Glory, aka Stwolodin. Um, this is honestly one of the shining little beacons that came out of Mythic Odysseys of Theros. And I know that they were based on a new different oath during Unearthed Arcana, and there's some people who say they got nerfed. I'll be honest, I still think they're phenomenal and they do their job of being like, I'm a paladin of me.
You're like you're like Macho Man Randy Savage, the paladin.
Dude, you're like Gaston if Gaston was a paladin. No one fights like Gaston. Like, it's such an Oath of Glory kind of thing. And his summoned steed is that little dude that sang the song.
LeFou.
Yep. Anyway, so kind of starting off their Channel Divinity, Peerless Athlete. Again, athletics is probably something you're going to be good at. You probably have a decent strength as a paladin. So your athletics is probably pretty good or okay. But Peerless Athlete kind of lets you go, all right, let's get dangerous. And increasing, I love the athletics check advantage. Increasing your jump speed, that's very nice. Again, coupling that with a ring of jumping or a buddy who has the jump spell, your jumps can get kind of out of hand. Um, yeah, it's just a fun one too to just be like, oh man, how are we gonna get over that thing? And you're like, back up, little buddies, I got this, and you get to show off. And hopefully, the dice don't make you eat shit, but fearless athlete's probably gonna help. Inspiring smite, I gotta say, I love as a sort of I hit you. I look like I do like a wink and like a teeth ping as I hit someone, and then I get to give out temporary hit points to my friends, myself, anyone I want. It's it's a pretty righteous ability,
That is the
and
exact sound I had in my head was the ping
yeah,
when I saw
bam,
it.
bing, the camera just slows down long enough for you to like look in the camera and like anyway. But yeah, no, and I love inspiring smite because it's not only like look how good I am, but you're also a little better for how good I am. Again, it all just eats back into this sort of glory hole. Nope, that's not it.
I mean, are
Uh
you eating into a glory hole? Because I feel like that's a different battle to discuss. Anyway, oh dude,
moving right along.
I thought of a cool example of an Oath of Glory paladin,
Yeah, what do you think?
Aoi from Moana.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah. While his powers definitely are druidic in
What?
nature, but there's definitely an oath of glory of like, you're welcome. Like that's a very oath of glory kind of, oh, I'm here. You're welcome, everybody. Kind of idea. I love Aura of Alacrity because one of the biggest kind of problems a lot of paladins have is they're a little slow on their feet. And again, not slower than anyone else, but when your whole thing is, I need to get up to you and hit you like a truck, that truck needs to get to its destination. And Aura of Alacrity, again, not only makes you faster, but are you like, bro, you want to hang out? Bro, you like down with this? Cool, you're faster too. Like, but again, they got to be down with it because they got to be close to you. um, I love Glorious Defense. Again, they all just feed into each other in this really lovely kind of way. Where someone some one of your buddies gets hit, and then you just go, "Hey, let's see if I can't help you out." And by helping you out, I'm gonna punish that guy. And again, it's like, oh, this guy's about to hit him, and then you just like all of a sudden you cut into frame and you like steal the scene as you then beat the guy down. Um, and it's great because it's based off your charisma modifier, which is probably pretty good.
Hopefully.
And then last but not least is the living legend. This is when you have truly written your name across the face of the world and gaining advantage in all charisma checks because at this point, you don't need to tell everyone how great you are. It's known at this point. Um, Turning a miss into a hit, that's that's incredible. And again, you're at 20th level, so like you actually might miss people from time to time. And again, there might be just some things like magic, it misses, and you're like, magic, it doesn't. And then failing a saving throw, being able to reroll. Again, you probably have pretty great saves. You're a freaking paladin. But again, it just kind of lets you be this big, bold, better, larger than life kind of transformation. And again, it's a paladin, so it's hard to compare this paladin to other paladins and say it's not as good because, like, at the end of the day, you're a fucking paladin. But Living Legend is probably it's a little lackluster comparatively to some of the other transformations. It's not bad. It's not crappy. It's just some of the other ones are just like blow it out of the water.
I will say, because the newer one, they have the ability to get back their living legend and the spell 5th level spell slot, which
That's
some of the
true.
more powerful ones do not have.
Right, right. Yeah. So you get extra uses out of it, which is kind of a way they make up for that. But some of the noticeable spells, and the first one I'm going to say is haste. Haste. It's haste. Because the thing that a paladin was missing was going fast as hell and getting more attacks and more ace. Like, It's everything you want and more as Paladin. Guiding Bolt is nice because you don't really have a lot of like ranged attacks that are worth a damn. Like, sure, you can have javelins, great for you. Like, that's nice. But having a Guiding Bolt, again, it's going to do decent damage and you're going to help your friends out with it. Solid. Heroism, while, you can't be frightened at a certain level, um, being able to give someone regenerating temps is great, even if that someone is you. Protection from energy, while situational, still great to have. And again, you get those moments of like, oh no, that building's on fire. Like, we can't go back in. And you go, protection from energy, fire. I got it. And you leap into a burning building because that's who you are. And then finally, you get freaking Flame Strike, which is just when a lot of people need to die very quickly. Flame Strike's the way to go. Yeah, Oath of Glory is a lot of fun. And again, I know I've been playing it or kind of opining it as this sort of Gaston self egotistical kind of paladin, and it plays very easily into that niche. But there's nothing saying that you are not an Oath of Glory paladin to like, I'm going to get glory for my god, right? And you're going to like, I'm going to erect the greatest tower to Lathander so it will touch the sun. And again, it's all about how you interpret it. Gods can never come into this kind of paladin, and I imagine with the idea behind it in Mythic Odysseys of Theros is that you're kind of writing your story. You're an Odysseus, you're a Hercules to some greater or lesser degree. Like, you are just out in the world carving your story through the land and meeting fantastical beasts and gods and all this stuff. But it's a super fun oath.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was even thinking of like Achilles and other
Sure.
almost like
Oh God, yeah.
great paladin oath for like you're a demigod. You don't worship Zeus, but you're definitely descended from him, so you're pretty fucking sweet.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna move on to the Oath of Redemption, or as I like to call them, the Saturday, because they're all about kind of like using violence as a last resort and redeeming others, being like, yeah, I know they're evil, but they can be saved. But when you do finally make the choice that violence might be the answer, you commit to that. So their channel divinities are, one's really good, one's okay. Their emissary of peace, you know what you need? +5 to persuasion for 10 minutes. You don't need that. You're a paladin. Fine. And then their other one is rebuke the violent, which is awesome because someone hits you or a friend, and you go, "Hey, make a saving throw. If you fail, great.
Please stop.
You hit yourself for all that damage, or you fail,
Yeah.
or you made the save and you hit yourself for half that damage. All the damage still goes through to the person being hit, but they get punished for it. The aura of the Guardian, it kind of lets you just take the blow for people, which is really cool because it starts off within 10 feet and then eventually 30, obviously. And yeah, it just lets you take damage for people, which is kind of what you're doing. You're a protector. The protective spirit, because you are going to be throwing yourself into harm's way at every time you can, just gives you regeneration, which is amazing. Once you're at half hit points, you just start regenerating. So it helps mitigating some of those times that you are going to be doing. There we go. And then the Emissary of Redemption. You just have resistance to all damage dealt by creatures. Yup. And whenever a creature hits you with an attack, it just takes half the radiant damage back at it. So you are the Hippocratic Oath, and you hit real bad.
You turn the other cheek with brass knuckles. Like...
Yeah, exactly. And obviously the downside of that is if you attack, it goes away. But that's kind of the whole purpose of this. I think some spells that I like to highlight is Sanctuary again. especially if people are going to be attacking others, and you can kind of sanctuary around you or yourself because you're not doing attacks. Um, Sleep is a great pacifist way to take out enemies. Counterspell is amazing, especially if you're helping protect your friends and others. Hypnotic pattern, another great way to incapacitate a group of enemies. And then I really looked at this and I was like, holy fucking shit, they get Wall of Force. So when someone can't be stopped, you just put a wall that says, oh, you're stopped. And unless you have.
put baby in the corner.
Yeah.
Like, you can put baby in the corner.
Yeah. Yeah. And so yeah, they're fun. I've seen one played. I don't know how much I would like them. I like hitting things as a paladin, but I could definitely see Oath of Redemption with the fighting style for cantrips, so that you have a little bit more casting because you're not really focusing on hurting people. Could be nice. But
I mean, I'll say this: I could definitely see a redemption paladin just being all about status effects, right? Slowing enemies down, kind of just, and maybe buffing your party and being kind of a side healer. And then again, when it's like, oh, we're fighting a demon, you're like, well, there is no, we do not exchange words with demons, ka-chow. But
yeah.
I could see that being a lot of fun. Why Satadin though, and not like Peaceadin?
Because I feel like they make the beings fighting them sad about their life choices.
Ah, okay.
Because the idea is like you have all these effects that like you hit me, I'm sorry about this, and they feel bad because they start taking their own damage. It's like we could have talked this out, buddy, and he's like, oh god, I hit you for so much damage, and I'm like, I know I took it, but like so did you, so aren't you sad about that?
Nice. Yeah, same with counterspell. Like, bud, you shouldn't have cast that. We don't do that here.
Yeah, we didn't have to do that. You made this choice. I was just here to have a good time.
Right. All right, I'm with it. I'm cool. Next we're gonna talk about Oath of Ancients, aka Spelladin. And we'll get to why in a second. And it's also Spelladin, like they cast spells and they're also like fuck spells. So to start out, it's actually funny. I think they have the worst, and I think Gene's with me on this, the worst channel divinity in the whole game. Like everyone's channel divinity, some are just like skill bump or like something minor, but like it's still got a positive effect. Nature's Wrath is, in my opinion, really kind of just overtuned, right? If it was a little more simple of just like, hey, make a save and they can't move. Great. But it's only useful within 10 feet of you. They get a strength or a dex save. A lot of, and again, monster to monster, person to person, but a lot of monsters got a good strength. Just weird how that works out. Or if they don't have good strength, they probably have a good dex. And they're restrained. And again, while restrained is an excellent condition, they get to save at the end of each of its turns. So the round you cast it on them, boom, they're restrained. On their turn, they can still act and do stuff, maybe not move. And then at the end of their turn, they save. You essentially wasted your action to do it. Then their action came up. They did something to you, and now it's gone. It just, to me, is there's too many moving parts on it. If they made it a bonus action and 30 feet, I'd be cool with it. Or if they made it like, restrained for until the end of your next turn. So it's just like, it's a quick halt, but there's no save, get out, something. But the way it's written now, I've never seen an Oath of Ancients Paladin use it. And I watched Gene play an Oath of Ancients Paladin from level 1 to 20. And I also have an Oath of Ancients Paladin I'm playing right now.
I mean,
so
I would say like if it was like the 10-foot area effect around you where it could affect a bunch of creatures.
Oh yeah.
I think
AoE?
People would use it a lot more. Also, by giving the monster the choice of strength or dex, and not just one of those.
Yeah.
It's like real bad. I don't know.
It's so overtuned. There's so many fiddly parts to it, and I again, restrained is a solid debuff, but it doesn't stop them from still doing things. So yeah, I mean, Gene, that's a great workaround. It kind of sucks. It just kind of sucks. You're not going to use your Channel Divinity for that. However, Turn the Faithless, on the other hand, is actually a pretty solid Channel Divinity because you get Fae and Fiends out of it. There is very few in the game abilities to turn Fae. There are plenty of people who get undead and fiends or get fiends from other places, but Fae and fiends together is kind of a rare combo. So that's really nice. Um, and the other thing is the kind of very, very bottom effect of if they're concealed by illusion, shape shifting, or other effect, they are revealed while they're turned is nice. So not only do you get some rare creature types, but you get a kind of an added benefit out of it, which is great. Aura of Warding might be the best one. It might be. I'm not a doctor, not a scientist, but Aura of Warding giving you resistance to spell damage, and that's not like damage from evocation spells, which again, still solid, but damage from spells, period, it's crazy. It's crazy town. You're like fireballs. Let's go. Bring it on.
How
Whatever. I don't
many
give a shit.
fireballs did we eat? How many
Oh,
fireballs?
dude, we ate fireball after fireball, and again, I was like a bear. I was a barbarian slash fighter, so I was like, oh, you did 50, 25 from him. I only take 12. Cool. Like whatever. And and just Gene also handing out a million, like plus a million to saves, and yeah, it's crazy. Spell damage resistance,
So
crazy.
good.
Undying Sentinel, again, fucking phenomenal. Get out of death free card once per long rest. It's great because I'll say this: it happened. Gene did go down in the beginning of our adventures. And then that kind of stopped happening after a while.
I mean, pairing that with a Death Ward sandwich, I mean, you're just like,
Oh
cool.
yeah,
Like, you're going to bring me down once. The second time, you're
yeah. I'll tell
not.
you, half orc, undying sentinel. Good luck. Good luck. um, and then finally, elder freaking champion.
Jesus
And I'll
fuck.
say this: as bad as their Nature's Wrath Channel Divinity is, all their other abilities are like top tier, incredible. And Elder Champion, again, I really like the kind of idea behind the Oath of Ancients Paladin that you sort of like made an oath to a grove or to protect a piece of land, and you sort of like the land and you had got this like magical communion where you're a little bit primal power and you get this magic resistance, and it's very kind of based off that Green Knight kind of imagery. Um, but Elder Champion gives you 10 hit points at the start of your turn. Great, regeneration. Who's going to say no to that? Whenever you get to cast all your spells as bonus actions, all your paladin spells as bonus actions. That's crazy.
Great.
That's attack, destructive
It
wave.
felt great.
It's
So good.
it's crazy.
Good.
And then enemy creatures have disadvantage on saving those against your paladin spells and channel divinity options. I guess that's the only way that Nature's Wrath is even decent. It takes to getting to level 20, but regardless, it's just incredible, And I mean, watching Gene play with the Ancients, like it was the craziest thing to have spell damage resistance our entire career of these characters in Adventures League. It was crazy. Um, and they're also, and Gene, the way Gene played it, he was a paladin of Sylvanas. And the way that we as a group and Gene had his own madness of this character, because he was definitely crazy. He played him that he was like Sylvanas's apex predator, right? Sylvanas put him on this planet and put him in the swamp where our characters were from and made him this apex predator to root out evil and root out Fae, Fiend, Undead, and just to crush them under Sylvanas's might. And it was It worked really well. It was very effective in that regard. Um,
Remember that
so yeah,
time
do you want to talk a little?
I got cursed
Oh, go
by
ahead.
having to be lawful good?
I do remember that. You were like, "What is?" And it was so weird because you weren't like a crazy murder hobo.
Yeah, it was so weird. All right. So next, oh, you want to talk about their spells real quick? Sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry. Some of their spells that are worth mentioning: Misty Step, teleportation, always good, 100%. Especially for a paladin who lacks mobility. Moonbeam, also because it's kind of low level, and depending on how you play with Moonbeam, it can be very effective. Uh, Ice Storm, having a 300-foot range spell, you're not going to be sad about. And again, at 20th level, those are bonus action Ice Storms. So just keep that in mind. Tree Stride is great. Traveling great distances. It's going to depend on your campaign and stuff like that. But being able to travel these great distances
Well,
over time.
actually, Tree Stride is only the 500 feet, but it's for mobility.
Oh, it's only 500 feet. Okay, still, it's still going to be a very powerful mobility move in those right scenarios. And then protection from energy is nice. It's good. It's nice to have. Again, with resistance from damage from spells, I think protection from energy loses a little oomph. Not in a bad way. It just
Yeah,
there it is.
yeah. Yeah, I think something we forgot to mention was with your mounts, any spell you cast that only targets yourself or affects you also affects them. So your Misty Step, actually you can travel with your mount, your Tree Stride. So it actually makes some of those spells a lot more useful when you're like, cool, I appear, but so does my griffin or my horse. So,
Yeah.
um, all right, next we have the Oath of the Crown, or as I called it, the Paladin, because their tenets very seem like what your dad is telling you have to do before you grow up. So, they're all about law, loyalty, courage, and responsibility. Um, and so, but really, they're kind of like they represent society and they like protect the foundations of society. Um, they have two channel divinities like all the rest, but champion challenge is awesome. It's like a area effect compelled duel, being like, "Hey, you five, come at me." And then the turn the tide when when your friend's spirits are down or their hit points are low, really, you can use your channel divinity as a bonus action to do a group heal and really get everyone up a few hit points. Pretty freaking solid. Uh they get a divine allegiance, which anyone who's their friend, I think within 10 or 30 feet, they can again do a take the blow, but they can't resist it in any way. They get unyielding spirit, which they get really good against the paralyzed or stun condition. They get advantage to saving throws, so that's really useful.
Oh,
Um
definitely.
oh yeah, definitely. And then they get exalted champion, which is, yeah, they're a champion. Uh and it lasts for an hour. Most of these only last a minute.
That's true. That
I
is
don't
very
know if
true.
this is a typo, but it's pretty fucking awesome. Where you get resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing from non-magical weapons. Awesome. Your allies have advantage on death saving throws, and you have advantage. You and your allies have advantage on wisdom saving throws. So it's cool. I don't think it's oh my god amazing, but having all those benefits for an entire hour, that's
Pretty solid.
pretty neat, especially like in a dungeon crawl or something where like room to room is actually only a character time. And their spells, which I almost skipped through. I'm a jerk. Time. Uh, their oath spells. Compelled duel, definitely kind of staying in concept with this idea of like fight to me. Warding bond, I think, is an amazing spell, especially if you are kind of playing the person who's like, I protect others, and here's a warding bond. A paladin who has spirit guardians. I don't know why it's necessary, but now that I see this paladin has it, I think it always was.
It's 100% unnecessary.
Guardian of Faith, again, I dropped that earlier, saying just being able to create this thing that lasts until it's done. 60 damage worth of points. Awesome. And they get a spell that not everyone gets, which is Circle of Power, which is really good. You know what you need?
Circle of power.
People not to make their saves against your spells, and you have advantage on stuff. It just makes you better for just existing in the circle. So that's the Oath of the Crown.
Yeah, they're pretty dope. You know, played right, played, you know, and again, crown is, you know, me and Gene had a discussion. Crown might be a little bit of a misnomer, you know. Yes, you can very much be that knight in service of a lord, but it can also be kind of like a not a kind of like a humanitarian. Like you're for the people. You know, maybe you grew up on the streets and like you came into some paladin order or took you in and you kind of like are now you represent those little people. Like there's a lot of ways you can kind of take it, which is cool. Um the next one we're going to talk about is the Oath of the Open Sea. Now, really quick sidebar. This is unofficial. It's very Critical Role centric, right? If you're a fan of Critical Role, you're probably into playing this. Even if you're not, it's kind of neat if you have an ocean themed idea, or maybe if you're playing a race that is ocean based, Tritons, Sea Elves. Um, so they are cool, you know. I like their first channel divinity where you get to just create a thick fog as you move, which again can be really kind of cleverly used to block lines of sight, to escape, to, you know, make your enemies have a hard time seeing you. Might make you have a hard time seeing them, but you know, there are multiple uses to this, and I like that it has a little bit of utility. Um, Fury of the Tides is nice because it's a bonus action. And for a minute, whenever you hit someone, you can start pushing people. So you kind of get built in crowd control with every swipe, which is great. You know, it's not going to be useful every time, but those times it is, it's real cool. You know, if your wizard slash warlock is really fond of making hazardous spells, well, you'd be a really good kind of ping pong partner to bat people into walls of fire, cloud kills, you name it. Uh, I like their aura of liberation because I just imagine every paladin with like an American flag waving behind them. Even though it's about the ocean liberation of just being free, I just maybe it's because I'm American. But I like this aura because you don't you don't have to deal with grapples or restraints and ignore penalties on movement or attacks while you're underwater. And again, that's going to be situational. You know, in fact, a lot of times that underwater trope happens in a game. I know it happens in many of the games I'm in, and sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's kind of a slog. And this at least makes it a little easier to kind of play in that space and not be bogged down. Um, and being able to escape non-magical restraints, neat, just neat. Stormy Waters is delightful. It's just delightful. Whenever a creature enters exits your melee range, they just take a D12 or get on the ground. That's just lovely. And the nice thing is, it's as long as you have a reaction, you can do it. So, you know, maybe if you take certain feats or certain spells, like you can really start locking down a battlefield, depending on how you use it. And there's also not a size requirement because a lot of times when you start doing forced movement, it's like large or smaller, etc. With this, they can be the size of a building, and you can be like, get on the ground. Now they're probably going to make that save, but still. And then Mythic Swashbuckler, which again, I just love the idea of the pinnacle of this paladin is just a pirate. um, Climbing costs you no additional movement. You get it for a minute, which is nice, and you get advantage on athletics. which is nice. Again, you can very much see kind of moving through the rigging, climbing into and out of the water, stuff like that. Um, being able to get advantage on creatures if you're kind of if you're the only creature within 5 feet. So if you're having an epic swashbuckling duel, you get to kind of be really good at that. Dodge action is a bonus. Amazing, just a better defensive ability. Um, and then having advantage in all dex saves is great because dex is probably a place that you're lacking. And again, maybe when you play this kind of paladin, maybe you are a Dexidin. Um, but no, they're neat. They're very thematic, and I would definitely talk to your GM before you make this choice because if you're like, we're gonna be in the desert for the first 10 levels of the game, you're you're not gonna have a great time. And again, you might still want to play this character because you'd be like, oh, I've been removed from the sea, and this is a test of my faith. Great, fun, go at it. But just keep that in mind. This character really shines in a water setting or water adjacent setting. Some of their spells that are quite nice. And by the way, big ups to Gene here. He had the brilliance to call them scurvidins because they would be great at fighting scurvy. And I could protest that, but you know what? I won't. It's just great.
It'll stand. It
Uh
stands.
let it stand. It's great. Some of their spells that are pretty righteous. Expeditious Retreat. I'll tell you, Expeditious Retreat is kind of one of those spells that I didn't think about for a long time, and then I read it and sort of started using it, and now it's like anytime I can get that spell from another source, what a ring, a feat, I'm like, give me Expeditious Retreat. Because even if you can only use it once a day, when it's like, oh man, that thing is really far, they start to run, you can be like, cool, super speed. And Expedition Retreat lets you kind of be a rogue without any of the training or skullduggery. Misty Step for them, super great. Call Lightning, you know, for when you need to drop lightning bolts on people, because that's very important. And again, it's very in theme for them, and I like that you're really staying in that stormy seawater kind of place with Tidal Wave and Maelstrom as well. Tidal Wave is just a nice little like low level spell. And yeah, they are a really fun kind of niche paladin, but I imagine with the right kind of tweaking and story behind them, you could have a lot of fun playing this paladin.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right, moving on to the Oath of the Watchers, or as Rennie has helped me name them, the Normaladin, because they are just a bunch of people who want to keep the world normal, and when weird shit invades, they get mad, and that's kind of their entire tenets is all about, hey, don't let these bad things in and keep things real. Their channel divinity is Watcher's Will, which is a group effect where you can choose a number of people and you give them advantage against all the mental saves. Wisdom, Charisma, Int, which is going to be a lot of the saves you use against mind control or banishment or weird shit happening to you. That's not like just damage. Their Abjure the Extraplanar is incredible because it's essentially a turn, but it affects every type of creature except for undead. You know, aberration, celestial, elemental, fey, and fiend. That's most bad people that you don't want to fight. And they're not normal. So that's cool, and they're not from this plane. Their aura of the Sentinel. I mean, who doesn't want better initiative? I mean, everyone wants initiative bonus. Here's the key, though: you're not proficient in it, but you do get to add your proficiency bonus.
Very weird, and
but it's important for
wording,
wording for certain classes to like combo that out. I think Vigilant Rebuke is kind of amazing because it's unlimited, besides based on your reaction. But anytime you or a creature makes a save within 30 feet versus int, wisdom, or charisma, so really combos with your channel divinity, you use your reaction to just deal 2d8 plus your charisma modifier, force damage to the thing that did that. And that's awesome. While situational, because if you're not making those kind of saves, but when you are making those kind of saves, especially like if it's like an area effect, you might disrupt the creature's concentration if one of your friends makes it and not everyone else does. So, pretty freaking cool. And then they become the Mortal Bulwark, which just doesn't sound right. But here's the cool thing about them. It's a bonus action. And a lot of these transformations are actions.
Are an action.
Yeah. So that bonus action is sweet. You get True Sight, 120 feet. That's amazing. You have an advantage against aberrations, celestials, elementals, fae, and fiends. Great, because that means you're going to hit. And also, you get a free... when you hit a creature with this and deal damage, you can force it to make a charisma against your spell DC or banish it to its native plane of existence.
Damn.
And on a successful save, they become immune to this effect. But you essentially get a minute worth of free banishments on every hit, assuming they are not of this plane. And that's amazing. And you can recharge it for a spell, a 5th level spell, which is just ridiculous. They get some really cool spells that are not essentially Paladin centric. You know, Divine Sense is amazing, but pair that with a Detect Magic they get for their Oath spells. See Invisibility, which not many classes get, and is an amazing spell, as Rennie has learned through what we're doing. Counter spell, because you are fighting these strange creatures and are probably throwing horrible magic at you. I threw in non-detection because I kind of like the idea of like you can kind of get into these situations without being detected by these creatures. And then lastly, Hold Monster is really nice because you are again fighting creatures that are going to fall under the monster tag, opposed to the human for like Hold Person or Hold Beast. So I actually read this and I was like, wow, Oath of the Watchers are really freaking cool.
Yeah. Yeah, Gene kind of came around on them.
I didn't realize how cool they were, so now I do, and
So the next one we're going to talk about is the Oath of Vengeance. Gene named them Cryodin, and this one I'm actually going to push back on because to me they're much more Batmanidin. Like you are very much
swear to me.
Swear to me. Like this is very much the you swear vengeance on crime and kind of Paladin. But they're still cool. They kind of work a little differently than not every other paladin because they certainly fall into the category. But as opposed, they are very focused with their vengeance and their hatred for a specific person. Their like kind of bread and butter ability is Vow of Enmity, where you choose one person and you just have advantage on attacking them. You just that guy, they're going down. Their other ability, which is Abjure Enemy, which lets you turn fiends and undead, which you would think, oh, that's neat. You kind of get a different kind of category of creature to mess with your turn ability. It also kind of stinks because fiends and undead are very often immune to fear, and so I imagine at low levels this ability is kind of nice, But once you start dealing with any amount of serious undead or serious fiends, it's going to be kind of useless. Um, and yeah, so again, these sound sort of like very single-minded sort of vengeance paladins. Their next ability is Relentless Avenger, which again, they just kind of work a little differently than every other 7th level ability. 7th level ability, every other paladin gets a new aura they can share with their buddies and themselves. Instead, you're so consumed by vengeance and brooding that when you hit a creature with an opportunity attack, you get to essentially chase them by moving at half your speed, which doesn't provoke opportunity attacks. Is nice, but essentially it lets you kind of like doggedly sort of pursue your enemy. Next, you get Soul of Vengeance, and you have to say it like that every time. I don't know why. It just those are the rules that I did not make up. But now again, when you use that bread and butter ability of Vow of Enmity, and they make an attack, it doesn't matter if it's against you or someone else. You get to swing on them for just having the audacity to swing at all. And then finally, Avenging Angel, where you get to assume the form of exactly what you think. Like whatever you're thinking right now, exactly that. And the nice thing is, kind of like Gene was saying, it does take an action, but it lasts an hour, which is very nice. You get a fly speed of 60, which again kind of overcomes one of the paladin's biggest weaknesses. And you get an aura. You sort of get whatever aura you might have gotten at 7th level, they sort of give to you at 20th level. And anytime an enemy sort of starts their turn or comes into it, they can become frightened of you, which is nice. And if they are frightened of you, you get to hurt them. So, being a big scary angel of vengeance, if they are afraid of a big scary angel of vengeance, you get to hurt them better. Um, I think they're fine, to be perfectly honest. I think Oath of Vengeance is very much a choice you make if you're telling a certain story. I don't think they're bad by any stretch, because again, you're a paladin. But uh I think it's you don't just start out like, hey guys, I'm gonna play Oath of Vengeance. Like, I think something has to happen to you, whether it's in game, whether it's an important part of your character's journey, that you become an Oath of Vengeance paladin. Some spells that are kind of notable to talk about. Hunter's Mark. It's just awesome. It's more damage, and it's a bonus action. Kind of great. Hold Person. Again, paralyzing someone and then just critting them to death. It's pretty cool. Misty Step for for mobility. Haste. Jesus fucking Christ, haste. Banishment, Dimension Door, Hold Monster. Like, honestly, they do get a lot of nice spells. But again, all their spells are either about how do I get closer to kill you? Now I'm killing you. Like, so they're cool, but I feel kind of almost like the Oath of the Sea. They're very sort of niche, and they can be interesting. But they're a little more maybe of a solo paladin than other paladins that are very much about healing others or helping others just in general. You want to finish this thing off, Dean?
Yeah. So the next paladin, Sacred Oath, is the opposite of that. Um, it's for a paladin who breaks their oath, and it's definitely you need to speak to your dungeon master before you use this. It is specifically in the DM option because it is built to fight PCs. Just the way it's written, you'd have to really sell me on a reason why they are part of a certain group or party that is not just a bunch of evil people. Now, if you're running an evil game, it might be perfect for you. But they are called Oathbreakers, or as Rennie named them, because they don't have to follow the normal naming convention because they've broken their oath. They're called Paladin. Yeah, Paladin. And
I was real happy with that, guys. I'm not gonna lie.
so they're channel divinities. They get control undead, which is wisdom save versus undead, and they get control for 24 hours, which is awesome. They essentially get a animate dead, and it's their CR has to be less than the paladin's level. So by a certain point, most undead are just gonna be completely affected by this, and their wisdom saves may not be great. They get a dreadful aspect, which is a 30-foot radius sphere, and it lasts for a minute, and they can only make saves against it when they're 30 feet or more away. So if a person stays and fights you while they're under the effect, it sucks for them because but they can't stop it. Aura of Hate, again, this is kind of where it leans toward that NPC.
Yeah, also you have an ability called Aura of Hate.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds sweet as fuck. But you know, that fiends and undead get bonuses to damage equal to the paladin's charisma modifier. Now it's real hard for. Yeah, it's like an old Blackguard, exactly, Ocelotus. It's very much based off the 3rd edition or 2nd edition Blackguard. But yeah, they can help undead and fiends. So unless you have someone summoning those, I don't really know where this benefit is going to happen as a player. Besides you controlling an undead, and then you can give it the bonus.
I think they get animate dead, so
yeah. Supernatural resistance. They just get a passive
crazy.
bludgeoning, piercing, slashing from non-magic. That's dumb, but that makes sense because you're fighting PCs. I'm going to reiterate, definitely built to fight player characters. And then at 20th level, they also get a transformation called Dreadlord, which they surround themselves in 30 feet of shadow. And whenever an enemy that is frightened by the paladin starts its turn, it takes a fuck ton of psychic. And then additionally, people who need to see have disadvantage on attack rolls while in the shadow. And the paladin can use their bonus action to make the shadows kind of like manifest into dark images and weapons, and they can attack people, and they deal necrotic damage with it. So it's a really neat flavor class, and like the idea of like you manipulate this darkness and hate. You're like Darth Vader or like a Sith Lord, and you're like using it against people, and it's cool. But it's definitely written to be like, hey guys, if you're making an NPC with levels and you want them to be an evil paladin with some cool effects, here's an NPC class that's fucking amazing for fighting players.
Oh yeah.
Spells they get a lot of cool spells that you don't get as a paladin. Hellish Rebuke, very nice, something to do with your reaction. Inflict Wounds I think is cool, but again, you're a paladin, you could smite. Crown of Madness is nice. Darkness also good. Animate Dead to help create some of those undead allies. Bestow Curse is just mean. Blight is fucking awesome. Confusion, especially, that's a spell you use against a group of people. Weird.
Yep.
Contagion, a very good spell as well, and Dominate Person. So they definitely, to me, are NPC paladins, but you could play them in certain campaigns if your friends are running an evil campaign or something. Yeah, it'd be a great boss fight. I've used it in the first D&D 5th edit game I ran. They fought an Oathbreaker who was pretty brutal.
Oh yeah. Oh, he did mean stuff to us.
It's very, very mean.
You were just trying to kill Tin because he was unkillable. At that
someone had to.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's all of the sacred oath.
Nice, nice. All right, so we're gonna move into the weakness of the paladin. To be honest, guys, this is a short section. It's very small.
It's why we labeled it Palawin weaknesses.
Here, why don't you roll first?
All right, I'm gonna roll initiative. Akatow, natural.
Oh,
Like,
look at you
I mean,
go.
if you tie this, it's pretty much so.
That would be incredible. I don't think it's gonna happen.
Incredible.
I think I also
Yeah, nailed it. Sweet. I go first. So I got
something
two.
should happen when you crit, man. I don't know. I feel like we need to do a thing for a crit.
We'll figure it out. People can tell us what to do. Give us some suggestions. So, paladin weaknesses. Just like D&D, Rennie, when you crit on initiative, it doesn't really mean much.
Ha! Yeah. All right. Fair enough.
Paladin weaknesses. I guess we'll start with their top weakness, mobility. You generally only move 30 feet, and that's your entire movement, unless you have a mount or some sort of cool teleporting ability. It is very hard for you to keep up with fast characters. Or fast NPCs and bad guys. So your mobility, kind of gross, but there are ways to fix it. But let's say out the gate, if we're looking at bland vanilla paladin, mobility is your weak spot.
Definitely. Kind of working off of that, they have kind of poor action economy, and it's funny because it's not like they can't do a lot with their turn. It's because you have so many sort of options. You know, you lay on hands, and like a lot of their good stuff takes an action to do because it's so good. Um, so you know, do you fight your enemy? Do you heal someone? You know, you kind of are locked into whatever. A lot of their good stuff is action based stuff, so you're sort of locked into a path once you do it. Again, that's not to say they can't do a lot of things on their turn if you plan it out and whatever. But you know, if you're doing one thing, you're probably not doing a lot of another thing. Unlike other classes who can kind of, you know, eke out a few things for their turn. Yeah.
Yeah, their action economy is but
But
playing a paladin 1 through 20th level, I did a lot of exciting things with my action. I did a lot of nothing with my bonus action unless I killed the person because I took a feat. Um, uh, they have a lack of just like ranged abilities, spells, abilities, and attacks. A lot of your cool abilities don't trigger off of ranged attacks. So it's like a lot of your spells are like 30-foot range, but occasionally if you take the right oath or sacred vow or multi-class, you can get some range attack. They don't have a lot to do with their range, and
yeah, built in, not
and
much.
a lot of their special ability are just really short range.
Yeah, agreed. Um, Now this maybe should be higher up on the list. But you know, sort of it's a weakness and it's not, but it can be a weakness depending on the situation, is adhering to your oath. You know, part of being a paladin, it's sort of baked into the class, is having this moral code, this philosophical code, this devout code, whatever that code ends up meaning to you. You know, part of playing that character is honoring that code, or depending on your story, not honoring that code and kind of dealing with the fallout from it. And it has, you know, sort of a high role play requirement. Now, you know, never be a dick for the sake of role play. Like, it's what my character would have done is unacceptable. It's 2021. We're not playing that game anymore. Like that is no longer well, it's just my role playing. Nope. You are the person who chose your character to make those actions. That is no longer, it's like saying, well, I didn't mean to do it, I was drunk. That doesn't excuse you from what you did. Um So it can be a bit of, and again, it's sort of both a hindrance and a benefit. Sometimes having a box to play in or this sort of code to play in lets you find that within the rigidity of that code, there is versatility and wiggle room. And how far do you stretch that code for your friends, for doing the right thing, etc., like that. And how does it affect the person inside of that code that you've made? So there is a lot of fun role play opportunities, but
Rennie, I need to interrupt you to let you know that we just hit 50% on the community
ah
goal. DJ Poser is
no.
very excited, saying, "Wow, a Warlock episode will be huge." And to mention that when we achieve this goal, Rennie will also build a Warlock that I will force him to play in one of our streams. Might only be
Terrible.
for like a one shot, and you guys will be able to see it through the overlay. But no, Ocelot77. You asked.
Here, Gene, let me ask you a question.
Okay. Well, I mean, we have a question.
Well, that's what I was gonna say.
Okay, you asked me.
Is that the how? All right, I'm sorry. I lost it. Never mind. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Which is how good are their DCs on wisdom based spells? Um, hey, do you want to answer that?
How good are their wisdom-based spells? Now, again, wisdom is one of those. Wisdom is one of those stats that not that paladins don't care about, but they have a lot. They're very. This is another one of their weaknesses, and thank you for bringing it up, Ocelotus. Is that they are what we call in the gaming community? They are mad or multiple ability score dependent, right? So they have to care about charisma. They probably have to care about strength or dex, depending on the kind of weapons they use. And then they care about con for hit points because they're going to be in combat a lot. And that doesn't leave a lot of room to care about int or wisdom or whatever strength or dex, whichever one, the other one you don't care about. So I'll say this: as much as wisdom might not be a stat you put points in, or maybe a zero, the nice thing about paladins is you have that built-in aura. Granted, you got to wait till 6th level to kind of start gaining the benefits from it. But if you put some points in that charisma, you make sure it's at least +3, you're not gonna have a bad time. It's definitely gonna be not maybe your strength, but it's never gonna be a negative to
I
you.
mean, and I think they're proficient in wisdom saves, and they get their bonuses, so they have a pretty high wisdom.
Yeah, that's one of their better ones,
And
I
I
would
would
say.
say for the spell casting side of it, it's all based on charisma. So your DC is going to be as good as any other person's DC based on their main casting stat. So if you go for the high charisma, you're gonna have a hard DC to beat. And if you also dip into like an item of devotion, which gives you pluses to your spell saves, now with these new abilities, your saves can be pretty hard to do.
Jesus Christ, they get wisdom charisma for saves? That seems unnecessary.
Uh, there's an announcement. Please look.
Oh, we have redeemed a trap. Or DJ Poser has revealed a trap card, if you will. And Gene, do you want to take the first one or do you want me? I don't
uh,
mind.
yeah. So I mean, I'll start with the trap.
All right, Gene, I'm going to put a minute on the clock. Are
Yeah,
you ready? Are you
sure.
willing?
Uh huh.
Are you able?
I mean, we need a sound effect. Yes, we do. But yeah. I mean, you
Oh,
let me.
we're doing it. This is brand new, guys.
Okay.
We're
Okay.
we're we're playing around with it. Ready?
All right. So ready? Tell me when to go.
Go.
All right. So in second edition D&D, the stat requirements to be a paladin were ludicrous. I believe it was an 1800 strength, and you also had to have a charisma of 18, I think, or 17.
I think
So
it's 17. It was uneven.
17. That was insane because the old way of rolling dice for your D&D characters in second ed was you rolled them and they laid where they lay. So what that means is that if you rolled a 4, like an 8 as a strength, well, you're not a strength based character. I believe they were harder to level because they were a specialty class, so they took more experience than the fighter.
They
I
did.
and I think more experience than the. They may have been same experience as cleric or on par with druid.
Gene, 10 seconds.
Besides that, I don't really crawl, and also only humans could be it unless your DM lets you go through it.
And time.
All right.
Nicely done. Nicely done. All right.
Good.
That was excellent. We do need a sound effect now.
Yeah, and I can
And
make it. We'll work on
yeah,
it.
we'll work on that, guys. I mean, I'll tell you, this is a show that's gonna develop and go different places as the more we do it, the more crap we're gonna jam in here until at one point it's just a show about sound effects and stupid faces
Just
that
air
we
horns are constantly playing.
uh
I don't even know where
right.
we were.
So back to Paladin weaknesses. I'm just gonna take the next one, Gene, and then you're
Sure.
gonna join in.
Sure.
Um they are kind of notoriously bad at stealth. As Gene said a few weeks ago, they're walking tin cans. You generally have heavy armor. You generally have a big weapon and a shield. Your dex is generally not one of your good stats. And again, depending on the kind of paladin you are, you're like, stealth? Why would I stealth? I am here to right the wrongs or, you know, bring this organization down, whatever the case may be. Uh, they are notoriously terrible stealth based people. Um, Gene, you want to take the next one, or are you?
Yeah. Thank you, Osanis. That was awesome. I appreciate that. We talked about them having mounts that were somewhat better than some classes that had mounts and like pets. Really, I think pets might be a little weak in D&D 5e, and that's okay. That might have been on design. So, paladins get their mounts, and unfortunately their mounts are very static. So, when they start with their horse at, summon steed or whatever equivalent they get, it's not a very powerful creature, and it's just more or less to get them around, and that's cool. But they give you abilities for your mounts where, like, they share spells that you cast only affecting yourself.
It's just a smite bus, Gene. You're just getting on
Yeah.
the smite bus till it drops you off at the smite stop, so you can smite.
Yeah. Yeah, they're like, choo choo! First stop arriving at the monster. And then you ride up 40 feet. And you're like, ah! You're like, ooh, that takes forever. And then and I say they did improve that with the improved steed, like the improved summon.
Find greater.
Find
Yeah.
greater, getting a cooler animal. Pegasus is baller because they get so many proficiencies and saves.
Dope.
Griffins get that extra attack. So you got these independent thinking mounts that you can telepathically talk to. But again, as you get to the higher levels, those 67 hit points, they don't hold up that long. I know that when I played my Paladin 1 through 20, I was constantly casting aid or constantly getting the inspiring speeches on my mount just to keep them in the fight. Because
I remember you being like, "Don't tell me about temporary hit points. Tell my bat about temporary hit points."
because I needed that bat to give me a flying speed.
You did. You totally did. Yeah. So the next thing is they don't get access to a lot of skills. That's just not their purview for all the nonsense spells, abilities, auras, channel divinities they get. Skills is just somewhere that's not their wheelhouse. You're gonna get your two from your lineage, your two from your background, and without more feats and more other stuff, that might be kind of it. And while it's a weakness of the class, I doubt very much that you're gonna find that you take away from the party by not being super skillful.
I mean, we were scrambling to find more weaknesses to really put them in line with other classes.
I swear to God, we were.
We're like, oh, what's this? It's like that's not a weakness.
Yeah.
Really. So I guess their weakness is They don't get a lot of resource recovery from short rests other than Channel Divinity. But there are also many classes that are not as good. Can I say that? Not as good as Paladin, or not as amazingly broken as Paladin, I guess, that don't get a lot
I'll
from.
say this, Gene, I don't even know if it's about good. It's about Paladin is one of those classes that they jammed so many abilities into.
Yeah.
Um, that other classes you look at it and you're like, you give this class an ability like every level, except for like 2 levels.
Yeah.
You gave abilities to this class every like 3rd level. Like, where's the
Yeah. Where's the downside?
right?
And so they recover their Channel Divinity, and especially if you're allowing Tasha's new stuff in, that ability to get spell slots back for a paladin, especially a half caster, is huge because that's another smite. And boy, I will tell you, smites are great. You should always smite. You never feel bad doing it. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that
Yeah.
week.
And I think that's it for like mechanical weaknesses, to be honest, guys and gals. The last thing that we kind of want to talk about, we're going to take a second here, is the sort of like the lawful good, holier than thou, buzzkill kind of paladin mentality that sort of exists around their class. Now, is that because certain people have personified certain negative traits? Probably. But it's a common enough trope because the class itself lends it, there's a lot of power in that class. And when you bring out these sort of negative traits and people have power in this fantasy game, those two things rarely make for a good time. But, the big thing you hear is about, lawful good, is lawful stupid. And that's a thing it doesn't have to be. In my opinion, I think lawful good should be just as frightening to people as lawful evil. You should follow your tenets, the law, to such a degree that it's kind of problematic. Like being so rigid within a code and not considering outlying factors, the human condition, suffering, when you just start looking at people at right and wrong, you miss an important part of kind of the whole picture. And it should be bad. You know what I mean? Um, and playing lawful stupid kind of is like, not letting your party have fun because you're there. And I'm going to tell you, just like in real life, if people can't have fun or do the things they want to do in a given situation because you're around, you're that guy or you're that girl. And I can't stress this enough. Don't be that guy. Don't be that girl. Don't be that person. Whether you're at a gaming table or otherwise, you can be lawful good. And listen, yes, there's sometimes when you're going to be like, GM, is there a bakery nearby? I'm really interested in that bakery while your friends are like robbing the alchemist. Sure, that might happen, but roll with it. Like your fun doesn't trump other people's fun, and you know, do your best to now listen, if they just like if they're like they hold up a person and go, "This is Bob," and they shiv Bob in the throat, all right, well, you should have a reaction about that and certainly react accordingly. Um, but don't try to get in the way of the flow of game, people's good time, just because well it says lawful good on my character sheet. I don't care what it says in your character sheet. We're here to have a good time.
And I'll say,
I don't
like,
know, Gene. Yeah.
even on a non-paladin good, I know that we have been playing some games where I play a lawful good character, not a paladin, very paladin like in like mantra, and we've come to head because of your chaotic good actions, where you're like, I did this because of the greater good, and I was like, you broke my trust and the code that we've put in, and I think it created a lot of dynamic that was fun to explore as characters, but at no point was there like, I'm mad at you for, like, no, it was like, if it inspires a good story or good role play, it's fine, but at no point are people, taking away from moments.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, not all paladin oaths and codes, even the ones that we just talked about, are lawful, are adherent to a code, or not adherent to a code, but adhere to such a strict kind of thing. Like, listen, I can see an oath of glory paladin being neutral good. Heck, maybe even neutral evil, depending on what you use your fame or how you achieve glory in your name. I could see it going that way. I also think alignment is a little bit of an outdated system. Um, you know, seeing the world in just, well, every time there's a decision, you tend to make a good choice chaotically. That's just not how people work. In certain situations they're this way, and then another decision comes and they're this way. It's not a perfect system. If you look at every choice someone's made, you could sure make a generalization, but again, you're missing a little nuance by doing so. Um, but yeah, don't be a dick. And lawful good, if done, I don't know about done correctly, but if lawful good kind of taken to its extreme, should look a lot like lawful evil, right? All of the alignments should look like one another, just taken to another thing. But you know, there is a reason that when you only look at people about how they follow the rules, don't follow the rules, that system doesn't hold up. Just
Weird.
weirdly doesn't do well.
uh,
I think that's it for weaknesses for me,
okay.
Gene. How about you?
Yeah. So before we move on to our room of reflection, if you guys want, you can start asking us questions in the chat, and when we get to the end, we'll try to answer them. They can be stupid, they can be silly, they could be even about the subject we're talking about. Don't have to be, but they could be. That'd be nice, and we'll do
The
our best
world's your
to
oyster.
answer them. Thank you everyone for contributing all of these sweet points toward Rennie making a warlock.
Boo!
It's
Boo to
amazing.
you!
And yeah, we're gonna move on to our room of reflection.
Reflection, reflection, reflection.
You know it's a room of
Nice.
reflection because I put a fountain in there.
That's the only time I reflect, Gene, when there's a fountain nearby. um, we're not gonna roll for initiative here. Gene, you want to start this? You want me to start
Yeah,
this?
I'll go. So I, as playing a purist paladin, um, I was always, I love multiclassing. If you know me, I am a multiclass fiend. I just love it. I love it because often I find that when you play D&D, you rarely get to that 20th level. You rarely get to that high end level play. So I find that it's fun to multi-class to kind of give yourself some tricks early on to kind of mitigate that. But I played a paladin from level 1 to level 20. There were no regrets. And it was awesome. And at no
No
point
regrets.
and at no point was I tempted to multi-class. People were like, "Oh, you should be a Palak or a Sorkadin." And I was like, "That's cool." But I was like, I could just be a paladin, and then I get my fucking ridiculous transformation, and my auras get insane. And also,
Which you did. You did get to use your
also
transformation.
because scrolls count as casting, I was like, you mean these 7 scrolls of destructive wave I have that I use as a bonus action every round? I don't give a shit about what you just said to me about multiclassing. And so I find that like you can multiclass into paladin, but since paladin really perks up at like 6th through 9th,
Yeah.
it's hard for me to say it's a good dip. I'm not saying you couldn't multiclass out to get a little bit of extra spell slots, like where you say warlock, getting those short rest spell slots, awesome,
Oh
or
yeah.
or sorcerer to get meta magic and some spells. But I would be hard. Even bard would be cool because you could get some augments for your friends, and a few levels of
Sure.
bard wouldn't hurt you, and you just get some skills. That would really be nice.
Yes.
But I don't think it's a good class to multi-class into. It's either you're multi-classing out of it a little bit, or you go all the way, and that's my personal opinion.
Man, Gene must really hate my character that multiclassed into Paladin in that other game we play.
It was a dumb move. But
Hey, I multiclassed out of Barbarian though, so did that give me some
yeah,
points?
I mean, like I cheated my way into Paladin by being a warlock sorcerer who just smites
I mean,
people.
I don't have any regrets, Gene. I'm
Oh
gonna be
no,
honest with you. I have no
no.
regrets.
I think you made good
Um,
character choices, good story choices.
oh yeah. Oh, I made those choices fully in character. They were not like, but I get an ability at 7. I was like, nope, I was a barbarian, now I'm a paladin. Anyway, so for the next thing we're gonna talk about a little bit is feats and kind of builds. Feat wise, they are martial characters. They generally tend towards getting in the fight. A lot of those, Great Weapon Master, Sentinel, Polearm Master, Great Weapon Master, a lot of those kind of like hit hard, hit big are great for them. Again, you already hit kind of big, but I will say, with Gene's 1 to 20 Paladin, he had Great Weapon Master, and some of his damage totals were just
Ludicrous.
it's terrifying. It's terrifying. I only caught up to him in damage because I played a fighter barbarian. I only caught up to him in damage in the last like 5 levels, like 50. When I was 15th, I kind of like caught up that I was like on par with him. Um, but it's they already hit hard. But there is something to be said for kind of a defensive paladin with Sentinel and Shield Master. Kind of being able to manipulate your battlefield a little bit, and slow people down and punish them for hitting your friends. And I will say, and just as many as there's a lot of those, hit people, like combat ones, taking certain of those Fey touched, like I gotta say this, like a Fey touched Oath of Ancients paladin, that's bread and butter right there. You might already get Misty Step through Oath of Ancients, but getting Misty Step for free once a day, plus being able to cast it with spell slots, which whatever, but you get another spell out of it as well. It's just nice. Um,
I would
again, if you find yourself, go ahead, Gene.
I would say any feats that give you versatility in reaction and bonus
Oh
action.
yeah.
Because
Hmm.
as a paladin, one of their weaknesses we talked about was they don't got a lot of action economy. So any ways to augment that, I'll tell you, as even 1 through 20 paladin, there were a lot of times I did nothing with my bonus action because A, I didn't crit, or B, I didn't kill a creature, so I didn't get my bonus action to
You just
do
sat there. Yeah.
anything. So just considering things that make it so you get actually use those and take advantage of them.
Hmm.
Like I think if I would have went Polearm Master, I might have gotten a little bit more punch out of my bonus action a bunch. But again, that's action economy. That's the ticket.
Yep. Yeah. Taking advantage of that is always great. Um, yeah. So I will say, as much as there's some good feats out there for them that like pairs well with combat, listen, paladins, like we said earlier, they have a lot of ability scores they depend on. You might find yourself getting an ability score increase every time you're able to, just because you need to bump all those stats up. Every time you bump your charisma up to another even level, you're helping yourself and everyone around you. It's kind of hard. Like, listen, if you took stats for every level you could, you're not gonna have a bad time. You're just not.
All right. I guess yeah. Please, audience questions. If you have them, ask them as we continue on. So, personal anecdote for me, I would say from playing a paladin 1 through 20, playing multi-class and other stuff, but a purist paladin, it was a ton of fun. It was awesome. You feel heroic. Also, anytime, like, there were a lot of games where it was just Rennie and I, or we didn't have our whole group of role playing, and we could still have a good time. We could still have as much fun because everyone still wants to be around your character. For the mechanical benefits, maybe not for what we said to them, but
Definitely not for this, especially you. Like, I was the nice one.
yeah,
You were crazy.
I mean, also being a paladin and ask questions about beholders, how do they poop? You gotta ask this question. It's very important. Or we used to pair with essentially a lawful evil character who was a warlock, and Rennie and I would just scream like things like we were gonna surprise attack someone. So I like jumped up and was like, "Who you
Who
is?"
you is?
Because like I'm not gonna attack someone dishonorably. That's weird. I'm a paladin. And he's like, "You ruined our surprise." I was like, I'm a paladin. We have enough advantage. We don't. It's okay. And so I don't know. I just think I think whatever the story takes you. I'm not gonna judge anyone for multi-classing into paladin, and I'm not gonna say play a pure paladin, but I'm gonna say getting that level 20 transformations.
And I mean, there is something to be said too. If you know in your heart of hearts that your campaign's not hitting 20 for whatever reason, if you know that your group's just that doesn't have the stamina, or if the game's like, hey, I'm only running fifth, like I'm running this adventure to 12th level, that's all it is. Then maybe multi-classing just so you get other abilities to kind of mix and match and have some fun. But if you know you have the potential to go to 20, there is quite a bright shiny prize at the end of that road. um yeah, I mean honestly, I avoided playing paladins for a long time, and only because looking over the classes I'm like, how do you like listen, I don't always min max. I try to make my choices from story, but I want my character to mechanically be effective at what they're there to accomplish. But like looking at paladin, I'm like, I wouldn't feel good about playing this. Like how would I feel good about being like, oh, you're a cleric? Well, you're like a quarter, like you're half as good as me. You're a fighter? Yeah, nice try, chump. Like, just I wouldn't feel good about being this class that just gets all these abilities. Um, you know, but at the same time, it's not like I ever gave anyone else crap for playing one. It just took me a while to kind of come around to the idea of yes, they're powerful, and fifth edition does not care about balance. It doesn't. Like anyone who says it does not care about balance. Um, and it's okay to play that character as long as you have a good story to go with it. And maybe I didn't have a good story to go with all that power, so I didn't play one for a long time, and then well, things changed. Um, yeah. Do we have any
We
questions? Do you
currently
know?
only have one question in here, so it's from DJ Poser, which he says, "How do you think Exandria Unlimited is going to be?" Which is the new Critical Role going to run for a few episodes.
I mean, I'll say I'm personally excited about it. I think it's kind of cool that you know, listen, they've run campaigns for years and years now, kind of back to back. And granted, while there's been pauses for a variety of reasons, I think it's good for them creatively to be able to step out of someone's shoes and maybe kind of just know that there's a like knowing that there's a short journey as opposed to this journey could go anywhere and everywhere and we don't know where it's going to go, like having that knowledge of like, hey, this is going to run 8 episodes, 10 episodes, whatever the case may be, and like we're going to do a thing, we're going to have some laughs. That can be really good. It can really help you. It can be good and cathartic for you.
Uh, I agree with you. I think it's going to be awesome because of the different live plays I've listened to of Matt role playing. He's fantastic. Besides being a GM, doesn't roll very well, but he plays fun characters. And the woman, uh, the woman GMing, and I forget her name. She is an
Oh,
amazing.
Abria, I believe, something like
I don't
that.
remember, but she is an amazing role player. I caught her on Dropout TV and their Dimension 20 stuff, and she's awesome. I am so excited to see her GM because she's incredible. So I think it's going to be a super duper. I'm ready. I'm like biting at the, to like just waiting to. I want to hear this session. I want to see it. And also, I like a lot of the
Yeah.
Critical Role actors who are going to be playing as well. But I definitely am excited to see her DMing style because her role
Yeah.
play is amazing. So her
Also, it's
characters
just
are.
fun to see Matt playing. Like whenever you see Matt playing, you're like, "Good for you, guy. You deserve it." Like, we have another question from Ocelotus. Does 5e have a mechanic like 3.5 for a fallen paladin becoming a super powered blackguard? So I'll start this off. I honestly, not really. Um, you know, being a blackguard, they kind of front load you a lot of really terrible ways to hurt people, just regular people, NPCs. Um, the feet wise, there's not really support other than your standard like pick up a great axe and swing it as hard as you can with Great Weapon Master, or pick up a pole arm and the standard kind of in fifth edition. And as much as I enjoy fifth edition, I think they do a lot of things right. Being a martial character, if you want to go down those damage roads, they're kind of right there, and there's not much variation in them, which I think is a little bit of a misstep, but it's fine. Uh, Yeah, as far as like powering up your blackguard stuff, not really. But I'll be honest, if your blackguard's above level like 10, you don't need it.
Uh, I will also say for mechanic wise, like it's all about your GM because your GM's like you broke your vow, you lost your powers. You don't get to decide that you've become an oath breaker. Uh, and also like there's like light guidelines about how you could redeem yourself and bring yourself back with like a paladin order, a quest, or a cleric forgiving you. Um, so yeah, there's nothing really mechanically to do it. It's all GM and story. But I would say if you were mechanically trying to power up this like Oathbreaker, maybe dipping a little bit into a Warlock Chain to like summon imps to make them a little more powerful, taking a little bit
You
of
know,
I don't know. I'm just necromancy just so you can get undead like quicker. Yeah, I mean,
yeah. I'll say Ocelotus in the rules, like the capital R rules, there's not really like, oh, you went 15 levels devotion paladin and then fell hard, and so whatever. There's nothing like that there. Now, listen, if you will talk to your GM and maybe like your paladin becomes a villain in the campaign, which by the way, dope idea. Um, maybe something would be like that, but in the rules as they stand, there's not. But I'm sure a creative GM can have a lot of fun. You
all
want
right,
it the next one, Gina?
all right. DJ Poser asks, "What kind of food will be on the combat charcuterie board?"
That's for you, man. I can't answer that. I'm not on combat charcuterie.
You're not part of the combat charcuterie, but if I were
And
to
I am
match
not.
it, see, I imagine some sort of fish for the cat person. Uh,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I imagine like dates for our Asimar, like almost like deserty Mediterranean food.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
I would say elf, maybe some sort of like fancy biscuit or like whey bread almost for our half elf.
That's an easy answer.
Fine, blood pudding next. I changed that immediately to blood pudding. Uh, let's see. For our giant person, I'm gonna go with some sort of goat because I feel I associate a goat with giants. Um. Uh.
Yeah. What do you put on Ugror's plate?
what's like a meat you can eat rare or raw? That's not fish.
I mean, if it's super high quality beef, you can eat some of those
So
raw,
maybe a too
like
fancy.
Wagyu beef. Or
Too fancy.
I
uh.
mean, you definitely cooked rats in one session,
Yeah.
and
You know
you
what?
were ate them like popcorn.
I would say cooked rat. And then I guess for me, I don't eat, so that's kind of weird. But I would say a very hard cheese. Just so it's
Would
a
you
little.
just smear it
No,
on
it's
your
really
faceplate?
tough to eat, like a dwarf should be. I don't eat it, and also,
That's fair.
but it's very well made, and that's the part of the key.
Yes, DJ Poser, a can of oil.
Yeah.
Gene gets an oil can for his.
Uh,
Um. All right, I think. I mean,
we have. All right, hold on. Got a few more.
DJ Poser asks, in older editions, didn't you lose paladin abilities if you strayed too far from your alignment? And the answer is yes. They had rules in second ed, maybe even third, and like
I
third
mean, there's
slash two
still
point five.
technically roleplay guidance that if you stray too far from your sacred oath, you can lose it. in
Yes,
fifth ed.
yes, absolutely. And again, in second edition, it was like super harsh, where the only morality dictator was alignment, and it was like, listen, it could be like if something happened to you that changed your alignment even outside your control, it could screw up your paladin class. So that is definitely was a possibility and still is, but I think now D&D focuses a little bit more on story, or kind of leaves those decisions up to your GM, as opposed to like baking them hard into the rules.
All right. I think that might be it for election. Right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel reflecty. Yeah, Gene, I think we did it. So we
Yeah.
made it. Thanks, everyone. This was great.
Yeah. I'd like to thank Ocelota77 for cheering us 200 bits. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. Um, Shout outs again. Happy Pride, you know.
Yeah, happy Pride. Just real quick, not tomorrow, but the
Well,
following
well,
Tuesday, you can.
I will here go with what you're saying, but we do have something tomorrow.
The following Tuesday, Gene will be running the campaign Lost Legacy, which stars a number of people, including myself. Gene is the GM. Mrs. Hades Games is a player as well. And you can check us out there. And this Friday, we have Curse of Strahd, and we might actually meet him this time, which is frightening.
It's gonna
But
be weird.
here we are.
And I will be running this Tuesday. I will be running a rerun of episode 1 of Lost Legacy. During the off date, since we run Lost Legacy every other week, I will be running the rerun of the previous episode
Solid.
until we're
Yep,
caught
solid.
up. Just so that if you started late in the campaign and you want to catch up episode 1, 2, and 3, by time you'll be kind of there the episode before. So we'll be running episode 1 tomorrow, and then the following week would be episode, which would
Awesome.
be live. Also to announce will be we have introduced a system where you can spend your channel points, your potions, to to buy inspiration for both the players and or the GM, if you want to support them, so that you can really be part of the live play experience by helping change fate in either one of their directions.
Guys, I just want to say, as much as I hate this challenge that I'm going to force to be talking about
Dude, we're
warlocks
a
for any amount
lot.
of time. However, I'm really proud of you guys because we're at 69% by the end of the stream, and that just means a lot to me. I just want you to know.
Yeah, we are
Well, never mind.
5K away.
Never mind. Cool. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. This was the 6 episodes of Dungeon Delvers. We're gonna try to be here every Monday, schedules permitting. And we hope to see you soon with other unconventional hero stuff.
Oh yeah.
But until then, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Yeah.
bitty, bye.
So we're gonna wrap up, and then we're gonna find someone to raid. So if you wanna just wait while we wrap, and I will find someone for us to raid. All right, we are going to raid. Let's go with Lady Poopsie. Let's have fun with that.